So, hi everyone, and welcome. Today's talk is Spiritual Chat on Channeling, and the date today is Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. So, I was prompted by my guides, that's putting it mildly, to speak on channeling today, as there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation out there regarding channeling. And after having done that marathon day on Friday of Archangel Metatron, the channeling part would also be uppermost in everybody's mind. So I just thought it might be good to do this, as some folk don't know, understand what channeling is, while others have the impression that it is a gift that's only for a select few. People also think if someone has brought through channeled information, that automatically the information is truth with capital T, and that the person channeling is in integrity. Anyone can claim that they are channeling and that the info they are sharing is channeled, and yet they could be lying. So how would you be able to tell the difference? Well, we have a really good BS meter built into our bodies. Our gut feelings tell us when something feels right or wrong. That is the first reaction that you get in your gut before your head gets in the way, talking you out of your original impression. It is so important to trust your gut feelings. You know what's best for you. If something doesn't resonate with you or doesn't feel right, leave it, no matter how qualified or knowledgeable the person may seem. I remember years ago reading an article that was, I've always appreciated how when I want answers, the universe finds ways, or my guides find ways of giving me the answers. So the article was in a channelings magazine. And the channeling was of Sananda, and Lord Sananda is basically what Jesus is known on the higher planes, okay? And it was by a well-known American channel who channels his energy. And I had read this American's channelings before, and they had all been good and clear, but this one just blew me away. So the article was judgmental from beginning to end, and how it started was, "Oh, you who dance around the fire and burn your candles and incense," and went on and on critically from the beginning to the end of the article. So it violated every part of my being that this could possibly be a channeling of Christ if he taught, "Judge ye not." So I've always spoken to the universe even before I knew there were angels and other beings who actually listened. So I said to the universe, "You'd better show me why I feel this way about this channeling. But there is no way that I am accepting that this could be from Sananda." When I spoke to the woman I work for about the article, she said, "Oh, it's probably because there are too many people that are into ritual anyway." And I'm sorry, but I don't believe that. So I didn't buy that one, because if that's what people are doing from their choice, no one can say that what they're doing is wrong. So about a week later, I was offered some tapes to listen to of channelings, and one of them was a channeling of Sananda by Eric Klein. Now, if you guys have listened to that channeling of Ashtar, that the channel is Eric Klein. So he channels Ashtar, Archangel Michael, Sananda, and a few other beings. And so, and he's amazing. I love him as a channel. So anyway, so I thought I'd listen to that one first, since the Sananda thing was high up in my mind. So it started with, "Good evening, I am Sananda. Just to let you know that this is the clearest channel of my energy on the planet. However, when we come through a channel, we come through their consciousness. So if they have a strong belief or opinions or judgments about the subject, it will color the channeling. So even if it is me and it is through this channel, if the info doesn't feel right, leave it." Well, how was that for getting the info straight from the horse's mouth? So if ever you are getting information, even if the person seems highly qualified, with that they're knowledgeable about whatever the subject is, if it doesn't feel right, leave it, because you know what's best for you. So I was very happy to get the answer to that, because I had read so many channelings of that particular channel that I was completely sideswiped that could come through and be able to color the channeling in such a huge way. So that was pretty mind blowing for me. So I just want to give you some information like what channeling is, what the different types are, and that kind of thing. So it gives you a broad base of understanding of what the different types of channelings are. So there was a wonderful article that I'd come across after I had already learned the channeling. So I learned the channeling in June 2001. And then we'd gone on a trip and we found back copies of this Channelings magazine. And this particular article on the fine art of channeling was in the magazine. And there was some really, really good stuff there. So I just want to read what this woman says regarding channeling. But she does kind of semi-trance channeling, okay? So she says, what is channeling? Simply put, channeling is the ability to quiet the busy mind, attune to the higher vibrational frequencies of the angelic and celestial realms, and bring through messages of love and wisdom from spirit guides and angels. Sometimes the messages may be from your higher self or God self, which can also be of a pure and truthful nature. There is a level of integrity that must be maintained in this work, so as not to allow your personal thoughts and feelings to interfere with the information coming from spirit. There is a place of centered truth within all of us, and channeling in its pure form will always resonate with that still centered place of truth inside you. So what are the different forms of channeling? I wrote an article back in 2012 before going to the US to teach. The group that I was going to, the lady said to me, won't you please just write an article explaining the different types of channeling so I can put it on my website for my peeps that I know that would be interested in coming to the course. And so I have pinned that article to the wall so that you can go and have a look at it in your own time if you're interested in the in-depth part of it. But I'll just briefly go into what the different types of channeling are. So you get automatic writing, where someone sits and writes or types and the information just flows through them. Then you get trance voice channeling, where the person's voice and facial features change as they bring through the messages. And they also inclined to not remember what the information was that they brought through. It's like they're in an altered state. Then you've got deep trance channeling, where the person appears to be asleep as the messages come through. Edgar Cayce was known as the sleeping prophet because he did the deep trance channeling. Then you've got conscious channeling. This is where a person is awake while bringing the information through psychically from a spiritual being. I don't do it like that because I'm not psychic, but I'll explain all that later. So in that same article when that this lady had done on the fine art of channeling, she was describing the difference between trance channeling and conscious channeling. And then she put this section in. She says, there are some very good psychics who are actually conscious channelers. They remain fully conscious with eyes open and are actually connecting with their higher self, spirit guides, and angels during their readings. They pull the information psychically from the higher realms, and when connected in this way, the information will be respectful of your free will, true and supportive. And then she goes on to say, the best conscious channelers can communicate messages from the higher realms while staying fully present themselves. That is truly an art. So thank goodness I had already learned the technique of channeling that I do, because that's exactly how I channel. And the way she said it made it sound like it was something that was a gift, or that not many people would be able to do it in that way. So I was really grateful that I had already learned it, because one is easily influenced when they say something could be difficult, you know. Now, some channelers may have not studied spiritual works, and so may assume that all beings connected with them are automatically a high vibrational being and be an authority on the subject matter that they are bringing through. The same goes for psychics. Yet this may not be the case. Just because some being who is non-physical connects with you does not necessarily mean they are of a higher vibration, just because they're not in physical form. As we've learned, all the stuff that we've discovered over the last couple of years, there's way more going on than we realize. And so you've got to be more attentive and aware than ever if someone is making a connection with you that's not non-physical, so that you can tell if they are of the light or not. Just because someone is non-physical or spirit does not their spirit does not automatically qualify them as being beings of light or of a higher vibration. So some people may believe the information they are receiving is good, but it could be misinformation, but they are unaware that it is. And also, if they haven't been on any spiritual journey or studied any spiritual stuff, they won't recognize when information is misinformation. And of course, the way the information comes through can sound very complicated and with a lot of authority, but could all be intermingled with misinformation, which I have found with some things, okay? The way to be able to tell if information is of a high vibration or a low vibration is, firstly, how does it make you feel? Does it uplift and empower you, or does it make you feel fearful and powerless? Secondly, is the information elitist? In other words, for a chosen few, in quotation marks, which creates more division than unity, or does it make you feel part of a greater whole? Thirdly, is it loving and supportive, or judgmental and taking away your free choice? Because there is some information that's around that's saying if you don't know this information, you're going to be left behind. And I'm sorry, nobody's going to be left behind. So all beings of light and of a higher vibration come from a place of unconditional love, no judgment, and will not interfere with your free choice. They have to operate from that premise, as this is universal law. Any being not working within these three parameters are not beings of light and definitely not of a higher vibration. You will feel this in your body straight away. Also know that someone who is psychic just means that they can see or hear more than you, because you shut that part of you down. We were all born with those gifts, but through experience or something that's happened or trauma, we've disconnected from that or shut it down. It doesn't make them more spiritual unless they've been on a spiritual journey themselves. So don't see them as an authority on your life more than you are. Nobody knows more what is right for you than yourself. Nobody has more authority than your inner being, your soul, and your soul will communicate it to you. You just have to ask. They're not allowed to interfere with us. So when you ask, they will find ways of getting the information to you. And then for some people who may still feel, well, how do we know for sure that there is even such a thing? There is scientific proof that something happens in the brain when we are in an altered state. So I just want to read you two things. The one is from What the Bleep Do We Know? The woman is Jay-Z Knight. So in What the Bleep Do We Know, Jay-Z Knight channels a 35,000-year-old warrior named Ramtha. Using an EEG, psychologists Ian Wickramasakara and Stanley Krippner of the Saybrook Graduate School observed while Jay-Z Knight was channeling Ramtha, her brainwave activity shifted to lower frequencies and her lower cerebellum appeared to be operating her body. Such scientific findings are beginning to validate that some claims of non-rational ways of knowing are grounded in observable effects. So she does trance channeling where she moves out the way and the other being moves in. Okay, so it's complete. So there's a complete shift in what happens in her brainwave activity. Then to quote Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field, she says, and this is also regarding meditation and stuff, she says, in ordinary perception, the capacity of the dendritic networks, which are the neural networks, in our brains to receive information from the zero-point field is strictly limited, as was demonstrated by the scientist Pribram. We are tuned into only a limited range of frequencies. However, any state of altered consciousness, meditation, relaxation, or dreams relaxes this constraint. According to systems theorist Ervin Laszlo, it is as though we are a radio and our bandwidth expands. The receptive patches in our brains become more receptive to a larger number of wavelengths in the 0-point field. So it shows that scientifically they can actually prove that something is different, something happens in the brain that shifts things, and that when we're in a state of meditation or any altered state, our bandwidth expands, and we do have access to more information than we do under normal everyday circumstances. And that's probably why all the spiritual teachings all encourage us to be able to find the stillness and to be quiet and to practice relaxation, because while you're doing those kind of things, you're in a centered space. You're in the now moment, and you are then open to information that your guides may want to be communicating to you. So, as I've been on my journey, there have been certain things that I was worried about channeling. I was always curious about it. I wanted the information, but I didn't want to kind of just open. How do we know about protection and all those kind of things? And one of the questions that had come up was to do with protection, because I come from a metaphysical background. So I just want to give you some information about that. So polarity of good and evil exists in the third dimension where we are, and in the astral plane, part of the astral plane where we go when we die. From the fifth dimension up, all the beings come from a place of no judgment, unconditional love, and respectful of our free will. Water reaches its own level. It's the same with vibration. Someone with a low vibration will not be able to tolerate someone of a high vibration unless their vibration is slowly raised to the higher vibration, in which case they are then high vibration beings and can no longer act from a lower vibrational level. I read a channeling from Archangel Michael where he uses an analogy of one room adjacent to another room with no windows or anything, just an interleading door between the two rooms. And there is a light in one room, and in the other room is darkness. So if you open the door between the two rooms, would the darkness go into the light, or would the light go into the darkness? Obviously, the light goes into the darkness, okay? So in a large warehouse, that is, the whole warehouse is in darkness. If you lit a match or a candle in the far corner, it would still illuminate the warehouse. It may not be bright light, but the light is vibration, so it would still be seen. So what we need to realize is that light is a vibration that can be measured. Darkness is purely the absence of light. Of itself, it is nothing, okay? So light illuminates the darkness. It is never the other way around. Darkness cannot put out the light. I first heard about calling in the white light for protection at Diana Cooper's Angel Workshop in Durban in March 1999. I was 37 years old at the time, and I thought that for 37 years, I knew nothing about protecting myself. So would that mean that I had never had any form of protection? What about all the people that don't know about this information of the white light? Does that mean that they are vulnerable and unprotected? I just felt that God couldn't possibly have put us here without any form of protection. And then I read a book, and I've searched in the book that I thought I found the information, and I can't find it in there. But this book had information about how we come into the physical body. And it said, you come into the causal body, and then you come into the next thing, and then you come into the mental body, which is our natural protection against psychic attack. So I knew that God hadn't done this job badly, that he had actually instilled something that was our natural protection. And I also come from a metaphysical background where I believe that we create our own reality. So it naturally follows that if I protect myself, I'm saying there's something to protect myself from. So I'm not going to do protection until I know that there's something I need to protect myself from. So there was a particular route through the market area that I refused to travel through when I was living in Durban. And if my husband accidentally took that route, I would make him turn around and go back. Otherwise, I'd threaten to jump out the car. It was crazy, but I just knew my whole body that I wasn't to go through there. And he thought I was being irrational. And anyway, if I believe in angels, why don't I get them to protect us? To which I just replied, I don't go where angels fear to tread. But I'd never really thought to question it because my body clearly showed me that it did not want to go through that area, and I just complied. I've always trusted my gut instinct and knew that if I go against it, I will find out why I was not supposed to do it. Yet, if I never went against it, I would probably never know what I avoided, but I preferred to do it that way. Then one day I just thought, how come I don't ask the angels to protect me? Why did I feel this way? Since seeing, I believed that I was always protected anyway. So one day I channeled and I asked Archangel Michael. And the reply was that for normal functioning in our life, your natural protection is sufficient. If you fear something, though, then you need to put protection in place because through your fear, you have disengaged your natural protection. However, if there is a strong group belief about a particular area or place being bad, then your natural protection is not sufficient because the negative belief is stronger than normal, and so you will need to put extra protection in place. So I realized, obviously, that was the story with that area, because at that time, I then started hearing stories about hijackings and smash and grabs and stuff in that area, right in the middle of that market area. So I just want to share some more information, again, from this article, Fine Art of Channeling. She says here, to maintain the highest level of integrity in this work, be sure you only work with the highest and most loving spirit guides, angels, archangels, and ascended masters, etc., who resonate with the vibrational frequency of the love and light of God. She says, it is not my desire to perpetuate fear in any way, so I will simply say it is wise to be aware that there are in spirit form some lower vibrational entities or beings who are not very evolved in a spiritual sense. She says, I don't believe they are evil, in quotation marks, but I do believe they can be self-serving and may bring chaotic energy with them. If you encounter any such being or entity in your meditation work that is not of a loving energy, simply command them to leave in the name of God or Christ or any other name that you use for God. Be sure to bring in the white light again and ask Christ or other God embodiment to protect you. And she says, know that these beings have no power over you unless you give it to them. Consequently, there is no need to fear them. Just have the awareness that you are in control of you and that they have no control. She also says, know as well that you are worthy enough to be calling on the Christ. Don't ever feel that you would be bothering him for any small thing. The Christ that I know loves each and every one of us. He is there for you in every way. Call upon him for protection, support, friendship, guidance, and love. Likewise, the Mother Mary and beings like Saint Germain, St. Francis, the archangels, the ascended masters, Buddha, Krishna, etc., are all available to us for love, protection, and support. So these beings are multidimensional beings, so they are not restricted to a body or time and space. So all of us can be calling on Christ at the same time, and he will be fully present equally, no less with anyone else. So don't feel you're taking them away from anything more important. And remember that we consider ourselves the let's say the lamp. You know, you've got the genie and the lamp. So our body is the lamp, the genie is our soul. So we see ourselves as the lamp, which is just the body, whereas they see the genie, the soul. So they consider anything that you call on them for as important if it's something that is preventing you from living your life to the full, you know. So I just want to share my story of how I started channeling. So I was working for a woman as a Girl Friday 4 mornings a week. She taught color therapy, and it was about 2 weeks before my 40th birthday. She said something profound to me. And when I asked her where she got the information from, she said, I channeled it. And I thought, yeah, right. A couple of days later, she said something else profound. And when I asked, she responded the same. Now, she was talking to me like I'm talking to you. And the only channeling I knew was of trance channeling. And so assumed she was holding out on me, that she was reading some book she wasn't sharing with me. So the next week, she was teaching a morning workshop of how to do tarot cards with the Aurosoma tarot cards, the color therapy tarot cards. And I sat in on the workshop. And when one of the students asked her where she sourced certain information from, I responded, oh, she channels it. She then defended herself by saying, actually, no, she really does channel it. So I then said to the group, well, if she's channeled it, I want to learn how to do it. And I said, so anybody want to learn how to do this? And so we set up the time, and everybody was available the next Wednesday, the 14th of June, which happened to be my 40th birthday. So I realized that there was something massive going on there. So straight after the morning workshop, after that workshop, she was freaking out saying, I have no clue how I do it. I only know that when I'm doing it, I'm in the space of channeling. So I said, well, since you can channel, go and channel how you do it and then come back and tell us. So, and that I had already done the energy healing training in 2000. So I said to her, I'd be able to check the energy field to be able to see if their energy was expanded. So let's just do this. I want to learn how to do it. So we set up the course for that day. So on the actual day, I was working, wasn't I? I was checking everybody's energy field while they were channeling. And so at the end of the day, I just thought, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to channel. The way the channeling was done, there would be groups of 2s or 3s, and you wouldn't be doing it for everybody sitting in a circle around you. And so she then said to me, okay, you sit in the teacher's chair. And she said, everyone, and at that point, I think there were 14 people there. Everyone, get a question ready because you're going to ask Allison. And I do not like being dumped in the deep end. And I was thinking, well, who's going to check my energy field? It was a bit pathetic. Like, I don't know how to do this. This was going on in my head. Of course, it wasn't what I was saying out loud. But it was like, oh, my gosh, I can't do this. She must have seen the horror in my face. And so she said to me, just close your eyes and call on the Master Almoria. Now, I had made a huge connection with him in a meditation that she had done in a color therapy class. And I had also connected with the white line in the same meditation. So I felt that I could trust that it was going to work out okay if I had Almoria there. I've developed the technique further than the way we had it there because we were just going off the seat of our pants, you know. But at the time, I was having a huge argument in my head about whether it was Almoria or not. But you only have to ask 3 times. But I didn't realize that at the time. When I realized that nothing else was going on, I just thought, let me open my eyes. So that's what I did. And to my surprise, everybody was in soft focus, as if there was a blue silk. And he is the master of the blue ray. So I realized that something was going on. And then I heard this one friend of mine who's very skeptical say, oh, look at the eyes. So I realized she could see something was different, that he was connected with my energy field. So as each person asked their question, I would close my eyes, refer the question, and then I would have a big argument in my head about the answer because it would have been the way I would have answered those questions anyway. What I didn't realize at the time, that when I am answering those kind of questions, I am channeling. But because I hadn't learned it formally, I didn't know that it worked the same way. So it went really well. And I remember one person asking a really inappropriate question about her sister's relationship, where he responded very diplomatically without making her feel uncomfortable that she should, because my response would be, you can't ask a question like that, you know, whereas his response was that when she's ready, she will come and speak to you. And so then I thought, okay, clearly I was channeling because the way I responded to that question was not the way I would. So I knew that it was definitely from him. And so I felt quite good about the fact that it all gone very well. And then when I thought I was finished, Melissa then says, do you have a message for the group? Oh my gosh, I was freaking out because now I had to be all bring an amazing message through. And I thought, well, if I just start talking, it's just going to flow. And so that's what I did. And that's still the way I channel today is where if I'm asking something, the minute I start speaking, it flows. I don't get all the information beforehand where there's a thought process beforehand. And so after the whole thing was finished, I then went and spoke to her and said, I'm confused because I can't really remember all the questions people asked, but I clearly remember the one that woman asked that was inappropriate. And I also don't remember the message. And she said, oh, no, because that information wasn't for you. And this level of work is really high integrity. So you don't want someone being able to ask you information that you can repeat accidentally. So don't worry about the fact of what you don't remember. The reason why you remember that person's question is because that's when you really knew that you were channeling. So anyway, when I was off the next day, my same skeptical friend invited me to her house for tea. And I thought I was arriving for tea, but she said, oh, no, we can have the tea afterwards. I need to ask you some questions. And again, I thought, oh, my gosh, I've been put in the hot spot. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it because now the teacher's not even there. So how am I going to be able to do it? But again, I thought, well, if it doesn't work, that's her fault because she shouldn't have put me on the spot. And so I got into the connected space as I remembered the way it had been said. And because this was now only the second time I was channeling. And again, she said, I love the look of his eyes. And so that's how I knew I was connected. And I remember her asking me really, really personal information to do with her husband's business. And I was still thinking that why is she asking me such personal things? Because I shouldn't know that kind of stuff. But the information just flowed. I gave her the information. And if a gun was held to my head today, I would not be able to repeat what I said to her. And I love that it's at that level of integrity because I'm fully present in my body. I'm not picking it up psychically because I'm not psychic. So what the workshop did for me was absolutely took the fear of life away. It put me completely in the now, no concern for what was going to happen next week, next month, next year. I stopped worrying about things that had happened in the past. And for the first time in my life, I think I was absolutely 100% in my body. Prior to that, I often used the thing of I'm so heavenly, I'm no earthly good because I was a real space cadet. I had that part down to a fine art. Why do we still have to wash dishes and cook food when we can do all this other spiritual stuff? So this was the first time I was fully grounded in my body. And then to know that I had access to these amazing beings and they were at my beck and call, and that's not meant disrespectfully, and that they watch over us and warn us if there's a problem, giving us guidance every step of the way, was the most empowering that had ever happened to me. I was running around Durban like a crazy woman telling everybody that they need to come and learn this technique because it was so empowering. And so I was just organizing workshop after workshop for this woman. Eventually she said to me, I'm sick and tired of you bullying me into doing this. This is not my passion. This is yours. You need to go teach it. And so that's when I started teaching it in March 2002. And of course, then once I started teaching it, I couldn't run around telling people that this is something they really should do because it would just sound like I was shouting my own praises because I was now teaching it. So it was more a very humble way of saying, I really suggest that you learn how to do this because it will completely change your life. Oh, and it was interesting how the last workshop that I was in with her was in January 2002. And on that workshop, because people don't normally give me messages if I'm assisting, they're channeling with each other. So, but I had a girl saying to me, oh, someone's going to give you something and this is going to be your life's work. Don't you love those messages? And I thought, oh, well, that means absolutely nothing to me. But I said to her to be respectful. So who is going to give me this? And so the woman she was describing, the whole description was the woman who was teaching the workshop. As she was describing her, I was looking at the woman behind her. And I thought to myself, first of all, I do Aurosoma, she does Aurosoma, but I don't teach Aurosoma, she teaches it. I do energy healing, she doesn't do energy healing. So what on earth could she possibly give me? And then when I spoke to her during the tea break, and I said, you do realize who you were describing? She said, yes, but I didn't want to let everybody else know. So then I just completely ignored it because it didn't make sense to me. And then she came to me in the March and she said to me, look, I think you should start teaching this because I now have the opportunity. She started making her own bottles. I'd stopped working for her in the December and started my own practice in the January. And she had started her own color therapy that she was making of essential oils and stuff in South Africa. And she had the opportunity to go over to Ireland Mind, Body, Soul Fair, where she could expose her bottles to everybody. But she said to me, I'm done now. I'm not teaching with channeling anymore. My passion is color, so you go do. You can teach it. And I still said to her, no, but you get all that amazing psychic information. She said, it's not psychic, it's channeled. And so all I could think of was, if I let this go, nobody will be able to learn what this is. And for me, it's the biggest, most empowering thing I have ever learned. And I cannot not do this. I cannot not teach it. And but I was petrified because I thought I don't know enough, because I really thought that it was when she got the information, it was psychic information the way she got it. And when I started teaching with the workshop, the first workshop, by the first morning tea, I already knew that the way she got the information, it was definitely channeled, because the information would just flow with me. So that's when I started teaching the workshop. Now, the technique, it's a specific technique of how to connect you with the 12th dimension. So you are not opening to channel. If the way to learn the channeling had been opening to channel, I wouldn't be doing it today. Because to me, I don't want to open up, and then you open up to all these unrested souls that thought when you died was over and done with. So they don't go with the beings that are taking them where they need to go. They stay trapped in the environment that they're familiar with. And so we didn't know why there was this 12D connection. And so, but I just did it exactly the way I had learned how to do it. And I used to wonder, so why, if from fifth dimension up, all these beings come from a space of unconditional love and no judgment, why do we go to the 12th dimension? But anyway, it worked, so that's all that mattered. And so I did not know the significance of the 12th dimension. And other people who had done channeling, they would speak about their body shaking, or they can't stay there long, it burns up their life force, and all these bad experiences that they would have when they were doing this trance channeling, like how badly their physical body was affected and they couldn't stay in that space for too long. And I had never had that experience. I felt more energized and alive and tuned and tapped in and turned on, as Abraham says. I never, ever felt depleted afterwards or anything. So I couldn't relate to what they were talking about. And I didn't want to say, well, I didn't feel that way, because that would have made them feel bad about themselves, because I didn't really have the answers why. And then I had been receiving these emails of channeled information from the Crimson Circle in the USA. And these were emails that were coming monthly with channelings that had taken place, and then they would transcribe the channeled information, and then they would send emails out. So it was about 9 pages of channeled info, and then about 8 or 9 pages of questions and answers. And then about a month would go by before they had the chance to do it, okay? So even though it was a month in between, I just found they were piling up. I didn't have time, and then the next one came, and it was like, damn. But luckily this time, somebody had sent me the email out of turn and said, oh my gosh, you need to read this. It's on Archangel Metatron. Because from the time I learned the channeling in the June to the December, every time I channeled, it was always it was always the Master Almoria, because that was the first guy that I connected with. So I don't know if it was because I felt safe with him. I don't know. It was always Almoria. But whenever I was channeling for anybody else, I always asked for the appropriate being to come through. I didn't call on a specific being. And it always used to still be Almoria until the December 2001. That was the first time Archangel Metatron connected with me. And so this person sent me and they knew that I had a connection with Archangel Metatron. And so they sent me the email saying, you've got to read this. It's a channeling by Archangel Metatron. So because it was out of the norm of the sequence, because the whole sequence was all about ascension, the whole ascension process. And so the channeling had taken place on the 7th of April, and I was reading it in May. So the channeling was done by the normal guide of this person named Tobias. The guide's name was Tobias. And then they announced that Archangel Metatron would be coming through, and that this was the first time that Archangel Metatron was coming through to the third dimension, that Metatron normally sent his helpers through, but that he felt that the message was so important regarding the ascension that he chose to come through himself. However, he said that Archangel Metatron's vibration is extremely high, and so the people present in the room would need to hold the energy space for the channel, as it would be very taxing on his body. Then when Archangel Metatron came through, he said that this is the first time that I'm coming through to the third dimension, and that with my vibration being high, the people need to please hold the space for the channel. And they were even describing what they saw visually as the channel's body's reaction when Metatron came through. Now, the fact that I had been channeling Metatron since December 2001 and been teaching the workshop since March 2002, and this channeling had been April the 7th, I remember clearly, April the 7th, 2002, and I was reading it in May. I was freaked out because I was very specific about the fact I need to know who the being is. I'm not listening to any old Tom, Dick, and Harry. They have to identify themselves. And I thought I knew how to do that, how you question it 3 times. And I also taught everybody. Some of the people said, oh, no, I don't care who it is, as long as it's a high vibrational being. And I said, but you should know what the name is. No, but I'm fine. It was like, as far as I'm concerned, I have to know. So with this information, I was pretty freaked out because I started thinking, now, well, who am I connected to? And when you read truth, you know that it is truth. You get it in your body. And I knew that the information in the email was true. I had absolutely no doubt. I questioned myself. I didn't question the channeling because I knew what they were saying was true. So I needed answers because I thought I cannot teach this course if I cannot teach people how to be able to check who they are connected with. So I decided I need to, because at first I thought, what's the point of channeling? Because I don't know who I'm connected to. But then I thought, no, I definitely know Almoria's energy. So I'm gonna call on Almoria. And so the one day I was driving, you're able to do this while driving because you're more in your body than you've ever been before, because you're bringing the 12th dimensional awareness into your third dimensional body. You're not going out of your body. And so I was driving to pick up a friend from the airport, and I thought, I'm going to get some answers from Almoria. But for some unknown reason, I called on an appropriate being instead of calling directly on Almoria. And when I asked who it was, it said Archangel Metatron. And I must tell you, I was very rude. I said to him, I don't know who you are, but please just leave and let Almoria come through. And how I would do the channeling, I would do it as talking out loud. So I would hear when it's me questioning or my cheeky voice, and then the calm voice. It's still my voice, but the calmness of the transmission, the words coming through. And he said, but you know that it's me. And my whole body was telling me that it was him, but I didn't trust what I was feeling anymore because of that Crimson Circle channeling. So I said, no, I don't know that it's you or anyone else for that matter, since it's the Crimson Circle channeling. What is the truth? And he said, you know that it is the truth. Now, to say that I was getting a little frustrated is an understatement because he was not going anywhere and I needed some answers. So eventually I said, can you please explain to me the difference between the Crimson Circle and when you went through there and when I'm connecting with you now? And he said, it's simple. When I went through to the Crimson Circle, I went through in the third dimension. When you connect with me, we are connecting in the 12th dimension. Well, I nearly drove the car off the road because, first of all, I didn't know the potency of the 12th dimensional connection until that moment. And then I was really embarrassed at how cheeky and rude I'd been because I thought it wasn't Metatron. And then I was apologizing profusely And he was just amused at my discomfort, because he just thought it was, I didn't need to worry about it. But for me, he felt it was far better for me to be questioning it than to just accept it as that it was him. If I felt that maybe it wasn't. And the lesson or the demonstration wasn't over. The next week, a friend of mine came to me for an Orosoma reading. And in the Orosoma range, it's dual-colored bottles, and now I think there's about 135 bottles in the whole range. They're beautiful. And some of the bottles have master energies put into them, or archangel energies. So they set the intention to feel the energy of the being into the bottle. It doesn't mean that's the master is in the bottle, but the energy is registered in that frequency. And she chose the Archangel Metatron bottle in the 4th position. And so I said to her, oh, remind me to let you know about the Archangel Metatron channeling that I read last week. And then I got, before I started the reading, Archangel Metatron says to me, no, you need to read that email to her. So I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know where I put it. So I'm searching everywhere. Eventually I find it on top of my bedside table next to my bed. I didn't read it there. I wouldn't have had it there because my husband didn't know that I channeled at this stage, because he would have thought I'd really lost the plot. So it was just lying on my bedside table. So anyway, I brought it back. First I handed it to her, and it's like, no, you need to read it to her. I never had an Orosoma reading go so weird before. So I start reading it, and no, she must close her eyes so she receives the energy of the reading. So anyway, as I start reading, she's now got her eyes closed. I'm now suddenly, as I'm reading, I'm breaking out in cold sweats and then hot flushes. And then I'm yawning, like a really big yawn. And I thought, oh my gosh, I must be coming down with the flu because I feel terrible. I felt like I was going into meltdown. But I was trying to keep my voice even, not to disturb her receiving the information in the right way. By the time I was finished, I felt awful. So then I said to her, gee, I feel terrible. I must be coming down with something. And in that instant, I realized that I felt 100% okay. But I was in the therapist mode during the reading, so I just carried on with the reading. And then when I got to the Archangel Metatron bottle, he said to me, now you know what it feels like if I connected with you on the 3rd dimension. Well, let me tell you, it really feels like you're going into meltdown. There's absolutely no way that our nervous system can take that. So I understood why they needed to hold the space for the channel in the Crimson Circle, and why the trance channelers had told me that it burns up a bit of your life force each time you channel, or that they couldn't hold the space for too long. But more importantly, I got how important the 12th dimensional connection is. So we act as a transformer, where you are bringing the higher vibration down, stepping it down through your subtle bodies until it is a workable 3rd dimensional form. It's like if you had a a transformer that's 132,000 volts, and if you had to plug that straight into your house, it would burn your house down. It's got to be stepped down through transformers until it's a workable 230 or 110 volt, depending on where you are in the world, in order for it to work. And then I had another experience, because I thought, oh, everything that's going on is all in the 12th dimension. And then on one workshop, this one woman wasn't getting a name. And that's like a red flag to a bull for me. Like, no, we have to have a name. We have to have a name. And so she said, all I'm seeing, she was very clairvoyant though. She said, all I'm seeing are these beautiful beings. It's kind of like they see through, and these amazing crystals. And I'm hearing this like angelic music. If I could sing it, I would, but I can't. It's just this amazing sound. And so I was just like, we're not moving further on yet till we find out who this is. And so it just popped into my head for her to ask, what dimension are they from? And I thought, well, that's a bit stupid. We're working on the 12th dimension. Why would we ask what dimension that they're from? And I said to her, it'll be the first number that pops into your head. And I think she got 52nd dimension. And I thought, where on earth did she go? We're supposed to be on 12D, not on 52D. I was trying to work out, well, who could this possibly be? Who could these beings be? And then she was talking about the music. And so the only beings that I knew relating to sound were the Hathors, because the story goes that they possibly built the pyramids through sound. And so when I asked her to check, and she said it was the Hathors. And that's when I realized that when we are in our 12th dimensional frequency, no higher being can affect your body in a negative way. And because I had people coming on the workshop, that the one guy, he did trance channeling, because I was surprised when I had psychics and channelers coming on my workshop. And I said, well, we're learning how to do what you do. What are you doing here? And they said, oh, no. When we're sitting in front of a client, their guides pitch up then, and then we can get information. We don't sit on our own and just have a chat with any non-physical being, and we can't call them in when at will. Whatever this is different. And so this guy, he met me in the car park when I arrived, and he said to me, I'm here to prove you wrong. So I said, oh, what do you mean? He said, well, first of all, I have done trance channeling for 20 years. It took me 20 years of training before that to get myself out the way to allow the being to move into the body. And he said, and I can't access the beings you're talking about, so I don't believe that is possible. So I said to him, well, I don't know how to tell you this. The course is a couple of days just for you to be able to practice and get confidence in the channeling. You're not actually, the actual channeling connection is 5 minutes. It doesn't take long to get into the connected space. Once we've done the regression that clears any fears, issues, or judgments of where you've been persecuted for this stuff in past lives. So it takes 5 minutes. And he said, but I can't believe that you can connect to these higher vibrational beings, because why can't everybody get access to that? And so needless to say, on the course, he had a booming voice. He was a Dutch guy. He had this booming voice, and I had to go to him and say to him, you need to speak a bit quieter because the other people can't hear that are trying to channel. He said, you don't understand. I've never, ever been present in my body. He said, I'm sitting on like the pelmet at the top of the room, looking down at my body when I'm channeling. So I don't know anything about the what I'm saying or what's being said to me. I'm just observing it while the being's talking, because the being moves into the body. And he said, here I am fully present and I'm speaking to Archangel Michael. How's that even possible? And so I should have, back in those days, I didn't get testimonials about these things. And I didn't have a website back then because, people came and learned it and there wasn't a need for a website. And then when I moved to Cape Town, I had a TV magazine program that was on a Sunday morning, and they used to do all different kinds of spiritual interviews and stuff. And they wanted to interview me on all the work that I do. I actually have that video, the free spirit interview, on the wall somewhere. And she then said to me, look, have you got a website? And I said, oh, no, I've never felt the need. She said, oh, no, because people are going to want to go and check what you do and be able to find you. You need to be found. So you need to do a website. But a lot of some of the experiences, I have got testimonials on the website, but some of the ones I then lost contact where I wasn't able to find that guy, because that would have been an amazing testimonial to have. But I also found with the psychics in the workshops, because I asked them afterwards, so how was it different to when you got with your psychic reading? And they said, well, they still got their psychic information, but it was on a much, in a very different way. It wasn't just when they accessed the emotional or the mental body. They were getting information in a much a broader way. And with some of them who were clairvoyant, they could see the being who they could see a high vibrational being, but they couldn't get any information from them because they couldn't tap into their energy because the frequency was too high. So that completely changed the way they did their psychic readings, So I just want to give some information about my method that I teach. So first of all, conscious channeling is the ability to quiet the busy mind, attune to the high vibrational frequencies of the angelic and celestial realms, and bring through messages of love and wisdom for your higher self, ascended masters, spirit guides, and angels. In this, because that's what that other lady had said, but in this case, it's while staying fully present in your body. Okay, so when I'm talking most of the time on these channels, I find that I am in the connected space. I can feel that I'm in the connected space. And then sometimes I can feel when the information is coming from a different place. And some of you have heard me where I say, oh, this could be channeled information now, because I don't say it with authority. I just say that there's a possibility, because you should feel when I'm talking if something is feeling different. So we were all born psychic, but we're then conditioned and taught that this was bad, and so we shut ourselves down. Our higher self or soul communicates with us through our thoughts as our own voice and feelings, but we were never taught to trust this. We are taught that if one cannot explain a thing logically, then we should ignore it or dismiss it. Any information from the higher dimensions cannot be explained logically, as logic is based on the 5 senses. When you trust the information that you get, you transform your life. So the method I teach is a step-by-step technique of how you connect with your 12th dimensional body. At this level, you have access to beings whom you would not have access to from your 3rd dimensional body. If you connected with these beings in your 3rd dimensional awareness, it would have an overwhelming effect on your nervous system. It is just not allowed, as this would be detrimental to your physical being, and the body's well-being is paramount. And as I said, there's no limit to the level of being that you can connect with, or that can connect with you. They always come from a place of unconditional love, no judgment, and will not take away your free choice. So there is no lower malevolent being that can connect with you, okay? They can't exist in this space. It's literally like if you look at a bicycle wheel and you can see the spokes, as it spins quicker, it becomes invisible. You can't see the spokes. So you can't even be on the radar of a malevolent being when you're in the connected space, because at that level, the frequency is too high. So when you're in this connected space, you can receive information about what you want guidance on. For me, that's the cherry on the cake. But what is more important is that being in this connected space, you functioning in your everyday life at a level of coherence and functionality that will impact your work, play, sport, life in general in a powerful way. This connection creates coherence in you, in your life, and in your environment. Being in your connected space, you have a positive effect on your environment wherever you are, bringing coherence where there may be chaos. And I've had many times when I'm talking and people will say, I just love to hear your voice. Many people tell me they always fall asleep when I talk. There's just something about, and I know that energy is transmitted when I'm speaking. My intention is always that it's love. So people should feel good when they're hearing my voice. They should never, ever have a negative impact. So I believe we were all born to have this level of connectivity, as it takes the fear out of life. This has an impact on you personally as well as the world at large. So when you're doing a speech or a lecture or a presentation and you're in the connected space, it'll always go smoothly, because examples or analogies will pop into your mind and the audience will just get it, like, oh, that happened to me last week, or it's funny that you should say that because just this morning something happened, and they'll be able to resonate with it. Oh, this is very good as well. So I never understood how it was that I could access information that psychics couldn't, and yet I didn't get the information the way that they do. And then one day when I was doing the reconnective healing training with Eric Pearl, he was using an analogy to explain the reconnective healing and how it was different from normal healing, from the ordinary energy healing that we know. So he drew dots on a flip chart all over the page, stating that this represented the universe. Then on the same page, he drew a circle, and in the circle he said, this circle represents the 3rd dimension where we exist. And then he described all forms of healing and psychic ability as being in this 3rd dimensional space. And he said it's like the analogy of the dial-up network, the old way to get onto the internet. Do you remember that? And so he said that was the old way to get to the old dial-up network, okay? And then he drew 2 parallel lines above that. And he said that this is the new frequency of light, energy, and information. He said this is the broadband like the broadband connection to the internet, this is the broadband connection to the universe. And that's when I realized that with the conscious channeling, I am connecting to that broadband connection. I don't get the psychic stuff because I'm not psychic. So if somebody came to me and wanted to know if they were going to meet a tall, dark, handsome man or a gorgeous, petite, blonde woman, whatever they want, I wouldn't be able to tell them because I don't get the information in that way. And so that's why I also don't do readings. When people say, oh, can I come to you for a reading? I always say, are you talking about a color reading or are you talking about psychic reading? Because I don't get it in that way. So I'm able to do channeled healings where I connect with the being and then channel the frequency to the individual. And they get information sometimes, but I don't do any readings per se. But I will find that when I'm speaking on some of the channels or if I'm doing my talks, like today's talk, that I will suddenly feel information coming through. Now, when I go and speak on some of the other channels, I don't get into the connected space to channel necessarily. I don't feel the need for that. But there are times when I'm on and I will talk about a subject and all of a sudden I'll feel myself switched on. I will feel that I am in the connected space. So somehow with learning this technique, it seems like one is given permission that they can use you wherever you are in order to transmit information through you. And the way you look, the way you speak, you look normal, you speak normally, so you don't, it doesn't freak people out. Like with other forms of channeling, people change. Their voice sounds like a man instead of a woman. They have the way they looks different. So that's enough to freak people out with the whole demonic possession thing. And so for some people, that's why they're scared of learning how to do channeling, because they feel like that's a possibility that can happen to them. But you are not opening to channel. You are bypassing all of that and going through a step-by-step technique to get to the 12th dimension. You are not going out of your body to get there. You are fully present in your body. And the beings, I remember the one psychic woman, I knew she was clairvoyant, and I said to her, so what do you see in the room with the channeling, with the whole thing? What do you see? She said, well, the beings that are going to connect with them have been in the room since this morning. It's like they're all hanging out. And then when that person's ready to channel, they then stand kind of behind them and they put their hand on their shoulder. So they're in their energy field, but they are not in their body. So that was great confirmation for me. And so through the years, I've had people, there was one girl who I didn't realize how much she was suffering from depression, because some of the people come on the course and I don't know what their background is, because the first time I'm meeting them is when they're attending the course. And she had been suffering severely from depression. And just from doing the workshop, it changed everything for her. And then I said to her, well, what did that have to do with it? We didn't do healing in it. And she said, no, just the idea of knowing that there are all these beings that have my back and I'm not alone. And there's someone who understands me, who's with me all the time, that I can communicate with. She said it just shifted something in my head. It's just like I don't need to fear. I can go ahead and do what I need to do because I will be supported in every way, and I don't need to fear anything because they will warn me beforehand. And so in all that's been going on in the last 2.5 years, I feel like I've just been in the center of the storm. With all the stuff that's been happening, I'm aware of it. I pay attention to what it is, but I don't go there. I don't wallow in it, because if it's all about frequency. So I like to use the analogy of radio frequency, that when you're in on FM radio, even if it's FM 105 and 95, those are pretty close, but you can be on FM or AM radio or medium wave. When you are on any one of those, you can spend your whole life intending all kinds of stuff. You're never going to be able to hear the other radio station unless you tuned in. So if things are happening negatively around you, you are tuned into negative stuff. That's why I keep on saying, if you keep your vibe high and you keep your focus on being joyful and happy, and hell, even if that's watching cartoons that make you laugh all day, you'll be in a better space of affecting everybody around you in a positive way than if you are paying attention to all the negativity and the fear that is being spread around. Because I promise you, keep on saying it, where we go one, we go all. There's not a political slogan, and nothing can stop what is coming is not a political slogan as well. No one will be left behind is also not a political slogan. The whole planet is ascending into fifth dimension. From that space, everything will be different. And I think the reason why things are kind of a little bit delayed the way they are is because more and more people are awakening. More and more people are they don't want to listen to all the naysaying or the negative stuff. They're like, oh my gosh, I need to find something that is uplifting and empowering. I'm done with the negative stuff. And so, and when I kind of got that feeling, it's a few months ago now, I remember going and listening to a few of the channels, and there wasn't a single channel that was uplifting. Every one of them was just to do with intel or negativity. And so I just thought it's time for me to now start my channel so I can provide a place that people can feel uplifted. They can listen to the recordings even if they can't be present at the time. And so that was my motivation with it. And of course, each time that I do any of my talks, I'm always in the connected space with the intention that everybody receives healing from hearing what I have to say, that somehow dots connect for them that inspires them in particular ways. And it doesn't matter if they listen to the recordings and never have direct contact with me, but they receive healing anyway. And so just keep your vibes high, and listen to your body. If somebody is telling an untruth, your body will tell you. I don't care how in authority you think they are. If your body tells you BS, trust your body first.